will.
What you're seeking is a blessing from God.
You must expect a miracle.
You have the power of choice.
Believe on the Lord Jesus Christ.
Welcome to Life Today Live. Randy Robinson here, and I've got a guest today who has been through some he's got one of those stories that you wonder how people get through these things. And that kind of is the question. How do you even get through that sort of thing? He's got a book out that tells his story. It is called Out of the Fire. My guest is Mike Kinney. And there's so much here. I don't even know how to tease it. Just say stick around and be a part of the conversation if you want. Loretta, good to see you today. Ajmal, forgive me if I pronounced that wrong, but chat is open if you're out there and you want to chime in on this one. Mike, great to have you. Appreciate you taking the time to share with our audience today.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be on the show.
So on the cover of your book, there's an ambulance, there's fire, there's reference to an angel. There's a lot going on. Take us back to kind of where you like to start to kind of tell your story so we can understand your long journey since then.
Sure. The title of the book is Out of the Fire, How an Angel and Stranger Intervened to Save a Life, and makes me laugh looking at it now because my dad, when he, a couple of months ago said, "Are you sure that you shouldn't have Matt as, in the title of the book?" Because Matt Blickendorf, my friend, saved my life. He pulled me out of this burning truck 20 years ago. And I said, "No, Dad, you're going to have to read the story to figure out why it says that." So, there's a reason that Matt is not the center of the story. There's not a hero of this story. The hero is Jesus, of course. But to take you back, I guess, as a starting point, I had my accident 20 years ago. I went on a journey, of course, and now this book is just such a blessing that I get to share my story and tell people about my journey.
Yeah, so describe the accident itself. What were you driving? Were you in a vehicle?
Yeah, I was driving my 1987 Ford Ranger, and my buddy Matt was driving in front of me in his little red Supra. He saw me swerve off the road through a hollow tree and into a telephone pole where the truck had a really long hood. Those 1987s had really long hoods. It crushed all the way back and on top of my legs. So I was trapped, and fire started in my truck. So by the time Matt got to the truck to try to pull me out, the whole thing was ablaze, cloth interior. And after he pulled on me, he tried to get into the truck. That's a whole nother story that's in the book. But he finally gets the door open, and he's trying to pull me out, realizes my seatbelt's on, and reaches in, burns himself trying to take the seatbelt off of me, and pulls on me, and it's like I didn't move an inch. So keeps pulling, probably about 5 or more minutes before a passerby came down this dark country road. And, the long story short, he kind of argued with Matt, told him to get away from the truck. It was going to blow up because the flames were going up this wooden telephone pole. We actually have video footage of when the fire truck got to the scene of the accident. You can see how high these flames are. But they argued. Finally, he came over, and that was the stranger that came and helped Matt pull me out of the truck.
What caused you to crash in the first place?
Well, it was 2 years later on the same exact day. August 16th of 2002 was when my bad accident happened. 2 years later on the same day, I had another car accident in the middle of the afternoon, and later learned that I have narcolepsy. Okay,
so you fell asleep at the wheel. And I'm guessing you don't remember any of that.
I don't remember a thing. My last memory is getting gas with my friend Matt, and we couldn't put too much gas in. I didn't have much money with me, but it turned out to be a good thing that we didn't have more money because that could have taken both of our lives.
Jeez. So I'm guessing you're in the hospital for a bit.
I was in ICU for about 6 or so weeks, and then was there in the pediatric unit of the hospital for another 6 weeks or so. So it was, most of my first semester of my senior year in high school.
Oh, wow. So you were young. What what were you raised as a Christian, or where was God during all this?
I was, yeah. I was born into a Christian home. Dad was an elder at the church, and so he's a dentist as well. So I had a lot of people that knew who my dad was, and I think that's something that I probably, in terms of my faith, I wrestled with prior to the accident. Was where do I fit in? What's my purpose? Why am I here?
Sure.
And then the accident happens, and it's like, now I really don't know what the road looks like in front of me.
Walk me down that road a little bit, both physically and spiritually.
Well, I would say when I first, I don't remember much of anything until about 6 weeks after the accident, when I was on the way to the pediatric wing. They had me in a drug-induced coma as I fought with the burns and the brain injury. But in terms of my journey of faith, I think when I woke up, again, I'm struggling with this brain injury. I understood that I had been in a car accident. Actually, I don't know if I completely understood it. I told my friend that I had fallen down a flight of stairs. But I was listening to the same worship music I listened to prior to the accident. I had that playing in the CD player at the time next to my bed in the hospital. And those songs became a lot more real to me than before the accident.
How are you now? I mean, are you still struggling with TBI or anything?
It's been a journey up until probably 6 years ago. I was in cognitive remediation and trying to figure out, even with the narcolepsy, getting those medications kind of balanced out over the years. But probably in 2014, I would say I took the biggest turn for the better when I got some help with cognitive remediation, and they found out I had lost my peripheral vision. The lower half of my vision had been basically shut off since the accident. So I was missing handshakes, different things that were super embarrassing to me. My visual processing speed was already slowed down because of the brain injury, but I didn't know that I couldn't see, like if you draw a circle and a line through the center of it, I couldn't see anything on the lower sphere of that. And so through therapy, I was able to regain my vision. Wow. And so the last 6 years have just been incredible as God's kind of prepared me to now tell my story.
Yeah, I mean, I've talked to a lot of people that have had various injuries, including the traumatic brain injuries and things. You don't, at least so far, you don't exhibit any outward signs that would let me know that you're suffering in any particular way. I mean, is this it? Do you have any kind of daily difficulties or anything?
Yeah, some of my executive functioning is not great. Again, it's improved over time. The brain's an amazing thing, how it can compensate and rewire. And so when I first woke up, I couldn't tell them how many sides were on a triangle. I couldn't lift up my middle finger on command. Wow. Of course, I tried to get through college, and that was tough. But the whole way, I just felt like the Lord was leading me and putting the right people in front of me on my journey. So lots of cognitive remediation. To this day, I'm still not great at remembering faces and things like that. And you wonder, some people are like, I can't do that, right? But I notice some things, and people that know me well probably notice some things, but I've been really fortunate.
So what do you make of all this? When you look at Mike Kinney's life and you go, I mean, fall asleep at the wheel, nearly burned to death, having to struggle just to function. What do you do with that? What's God doing with you?
For the longest time, I really wrestled with, again, before the accident and after the accident, like what on earth am I here for? As it says in Purpose Driven Life, right? And that was the book that I started reading in 2018 because I lost my cousin through just he decided to end his life, and come to find out, struggled with borderline disorder. And we had never dealt with anything like that in our family. And that was a gut-wrenching time. And that happened in 2017 on my birthday, on his sister's wedding day, and was just heart-wrenching. And then in 2018, I was asked to give a talk to a group of men at my church titled Designed for God's Purpose. And God has a sense of humor, because it was, through that talk and preparing for that talk, reading Purpose Driven Life, that I realized that he had a purpose for me. And part of it led back all the way back to 2003, right after the accident, when a young gal in my chemistry class heard my testimony, and she just gave me a thank you note, and it changed my life. Her name's Clancy. There's a chapter in the book called Reaching Clancy, and she had tried to kill herself. And I've never struggled with suicide or thoughts of wanting to end my life, but that was part of her story. And she shared it with me, but also just some words of encouragement, and how much she appreciated me sharing my story. And just, she prayed that God would always be with me, and said, I feel like God saved you and sent you to save me, and different things like that, that just rattled around in my head over the next 20 years as I tried to figure out what my purpose was. So when we lost my cousin, and then I give this talk in 2018, it was like, and then I have this vision too of kneeling next to Matt, my friend that pulled me out of the burning truck, in the field. And it's, he had one hand on my chest, the other one lifted to the sky, calling on Jesus's name. And Jesus literally shows up to the scene of the accident for my friend Matt. And it wasn't that easy for me. And I don't think it's that easy for a lot of us, where we just see Jesus or hear an audible voice. It was a journey over a 20-year period that I'm searching through the haze and the smoke and trying to figure out, God, where are you? And why am I here? And then it was through all of this and this vision that I had that I realized, man, I've got a story that I hope it can give hope to a lot of people. And, it's really the same story that we've heard, that it's the message of the gospel and what Jesus does for all of us. Right. But anyway, it was in my brokenness that I felt like, well, God can't use me anymore. And he just had a different plan in mind.
Yeah, I do. If there's any doubt still, whether God can use your story and your difficulties, your struggles, your brokenness, I'm just one guy, but the answer is yes. Not only can he, but he wants to in ways that you can't even imagine. That's just, I see it. I see it all the time. And to reach someone like, like the girl who's struggling with suicide, and change. I mean, that's, I don't know. I'm not 100% sure why God has decided to do this, but he seems to like he wants to work through people to reach other people. Because he could just show up in everybody's, living room and announce himself, and you believe or you don't believe, but he doesn't. But he works through people, especially people who have really been through a lot of hard things like you have, to reach people. And that's the pattern of the scripture. I see it all the time. I don't fully understand it, but it's what he does. And so you're in a unique position to reach a lot of people. What do you want to do?
I want to share, I want to share this message of hope, his message of hope, with whoever he puts in front of me, so from here on, it's kind of just open hands of, okay, Lord, take me to the people that need to hear your message of hope about your love, and really the message that he is with us. And the thing that I wrestled with personally after the accident and in the hospital, because I was in the pediatric floor, is seeing all the kids that were coming into the hospital that weren't getting better, that had, rolled their car 5 times, and the brain injury, was not going to get much better from that point. And so I really struggled with, why doesn't everyone make it out of their burning trucks? Yeah. And, kind of that survivor's guilt.
Yeah.
And then, I had heard this amazing story about my friend pulling me out of the truck, and then that Jesus came to the scene of the accident. And I'm like, okay, so what does that mean? And what am I supposed to do with that?
Right.
And I think we all feel like that sometimes, even when we just think about how he's saved us, right? It's like, that's incredible. If for those of us that believe, that's amazing. And if we've truly been saved, that's amazing. That should make us want to go and share that with everyone, right? But what keeps us from taking that next step of believing that we have a story to share and a message of hope to bring to other people? And so I think a lot of it had to do with just looking for Jesus in the middle of my difficult moments along the way. And then realizing, really through a friend that's also mentioned in the book, who was diagnosed with a terminal illness, Huntington's chorea.
Oh, no.
Diagnosed with Huntington's chorea. This was a dear friend of mine from a young age. And she was there for me right after my accident, sent me a 6-page letter, and pastor's kid. And we shared similar stories, but then her life took a massive change when she was diagnosed about 10 years ago with Huntington's chorea. And she taught me so much. She never got to read Out of the Fire, but her fingerprints are all over the book. And she told her mom that she had always wanted to write a book, but didn't think she was going to get that chance. So I'm absolutely honored that Jamie Sorum gets to be in this book. And I hope everyone gets to hear her story, and how it impacted mine. That's why it's in the book. It was in Jamie's terminal diagnosis and how she responded to it that it gave me such clarity for my own purpose. And that, no matter whatever we're dealing with, God can use us in whatever state we're in, even if we have Huntington's chorea and we are, we know we're going to be passing away. It's like, God, as long as you have breath in your lungs, he wants to use you and your story, your unique story and personality, to touch the life of somebody else, maybe change their life forever.
Yeah. My pastor for 19 years, his wife passed away from Huntington's chorea, and I understand that's a tough one, buddy. That's a hard one to wrestle with. And he was in the hospital. I think it was 21 days straight at the end with her. Never left the hospital. And other people would come in and out of the hospital, find out he was a pastor, ask him to pray with them. They'd get better and check out of the hospital, and she never did. So these are big issues. These are tough issues, and these are hard issues for people. And I think we can't always come in with the answers to these things. I'm not going to pretend like I get all of that. But what I do know is what you're saying is that God will walk with you through all these things, and that there is something beyond this life that we can have hope in. And so, all right, I have to ask you about the music. I'm going to show people the book again. This is Out of the Fire, Mike Kinney's book, and it's available. It's already out, right? Where's the date? Oh, yeah.
It is, just yesterday.
Yesterday. Wow, look at this. Just out. Out of the printing press, out of the fires, out of the press. Anyway, you can pick up the book wherever you get books. But so I'm a musician a little bit. I'm a hack. I like to play, and I played in bands and worship sets and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, you are too. And you did something unique, and I'm going to nerd out a little bit here because I was like, what is this? What is this Capo thing he's got here? Because I haven't seen that. So give us a little bit of how, because you referenced worship music in the hospital and things like that. Yeah. Where does worship in your life?
It's still so important to me. I think I put too much. I found too much of my identity in worship, leading worship. Because that's what I did before the accident. That's where I found some acceptance and purpose. And then after the accident, everybody still saw me as, my name is Michael W. Kinney. And so people, were like, Michael W., you're going to do what Michael W. does, or Chris Tomlin. And you hear that and it's like, well, that'd be pretty cool to lead packed stadiums,
Sure.
and everything. And as I kind of, strive towards that, doors just weren't opening like I thought they would, even at my home church that I've been at my whole life. And so that was really hard for me at the time. And, but I had a moment where I kind of laid that down, and God opened up the door for something that was going to completely take away my ability to even volunteer on the worship team on the weekends, because I was going to work weekends. And, but he gave me a peace about it. And then back in 2018, or 15, 18, it was sometime in there that I had I had lost my job, and it was awful. But it was during that time that I was able to develop a capo that I had a dream about in 2003, like a year after the accident. It was on my birthday. All this stuff was happening like around my birthday. I don't know why I felt like there's something to that, but I was listening, I guess, more intently at that time. And so this dream I had was of a capo I had never seen before. A capo is something a guitarist will put on the, what it is. You put it on the neck of a guitar, it'll change the key of a song. You can use the same chord shapes, and it makes it easier to change the melody. Well, I had been messing around before the accident with two capos. One of them would clamp all the strings, and then another one called a shortcut capo would clamp the second, third, and fourth string instead of all the strings at the same time. And it made it open string tuning. There was some old worship songs like Better Is One Day, and just some old classics that you could play with this. And it was a little easier to play. And I enjoyed that. Well, after the accident, some of my musician friends were saying, well, why don't you just play the song without the capos? And that's when I feel like God gave me this dream of the Kinney, and what I've called the Kinney capo, which is it allowed you to push down individually over each of the strings, which ones you wanted to play. And so it made a guitar more like a piano, because you have more octaves to work with now. And for me, though, what was the inspiration behind the capo was it represented, I felt limited by my injuries and by the brain injury and the narcolepsy and all these things that kept coming at me. The capo gave me hope over my journey, because I felt like the capo gave people unlimited possibilities.
Interesting. I'm not sure. I'm trying to picture how that works, and how it works, because it's not. It affects the open chord, but now that's fine if I'm playing, an A. But what if I switch to a C? Well, how does that affect the rest of them? So,
and that's what it does. And I think I learned this too over time, is that not everybody plays by ear. God's gifted us all, uniquely. I play by ear. I don't read sheet music, and so when I hear it and it sounds good, I know it, right?
Yeah.
So this capo allows you to experiment and play things you couldn't play before. You can play behind the capo and in front of the capo. And anyhow, I wrote songs with it, and that were really great. And I thought, there's something to this. And so again, I kind of just kept it in the back of my mind over the years. And then God finally gave me the opportunity to get the thing patented. And it just became, it was never about the capo for me. It was about sharing my story. Mm-hmm. And another part of my story is that Pete Townsend of The Who had given me a guitar.
I was going to ask you about that. Yeah.
And I didn't know who the guy was because I was 17, and apparently it turns out he's a rock legend. You think. And people were coming to the hospital to see my guitar, not see me.
Right.
But he wrote across the body of the guitar in big letters, "To Mike, this is the Phoenix, Pete." And that guitar has meant so much to me throughout my life. And, wrote me a handwritten note as well. It said he'd be praying for me in my speedy recovery.
Wow.
He heard about me through the Bob and Tom radio show. And, that students were collecting guitar picks for me, and Bob and Tom Radio broadcast this. And so I was receiving guitar picks from across the nation.
Wow.
And they called Pete Townsend's team in London and said, "Hey, would you be willing to send this kid a guitar pick?" And he said, "How about I send him a guitar?"
Nice.
And so he just couldn't have known how much that guitar would have an impact on my life, because to me, he was one of the strangers in my life. Again, I didn't know him from Adam or any of his music really, and but it's what he wrote on that guitar that was life-changing.
Did you ever reconnect later with him or communicate with him?
With Pete?
Yeah.
To this day, I'm still, it's been a life dream of mine to hopefully one day get to thank Pete Townsend. So if anyone's listening and knows how that might happen, would appreciate the support. But no, we haven't. I have been able to reconnect with Tom Griswold. He was so kind. He replaced my Takamine guitar that burned in my truck. I had led worship that night of the accident, and so my guitar burned, and he gave me an exact replica of the one that burned in my truck. So just amazing, the people that came to support me early on in my journey, and then over the last 20 years, God's just put the right people in place at the right time, and so happy that this book has come to fruition, and and that it can give people hope.
Yeah, a culmination of a lot of hard work, I'm sure. And was it tough going back and reliving some of these things?
Oh, it was. Tell you what, it was. It was really good. I'm glad I did it now, but it was a journey into some really hard times, and it was tough. I'd almost say it was traumatic, but there was healing in that process.
Good.
It was very tough. My wife was a great support through the process.
So you married, got kids?
Married, 3 kids. I've got a 4-year-old, 6-year-old, and an 8-month-old. So we're so blessed. And, tell you what, I'm learning more about life every day just having kiddos than I ever thought possible.
Okay, so let me ask you this, because I have 4 kids. They're all in their 20s now. But, we grow up in the church. I don't know, what kind of church did you grow up in? Just curious.
It was an Assemblies of God church and became non-denominational back in like 1995. So
okay, so we grow up and we have these concepts of God, most of them probably good, but some of them probably a little off, at least the way I was raised was. And then you have kids. And for me, I started to understand the unconditionality of God's love in a lot of ways. We don't approve of what our kids do. We discipline them because we love them, but we love them more than they can even comprehend. Mm-hmm. Have you gotten some of that, you think, with these young kids now, and understanding maybe God's relationship that He wants with us?
Absolutely. Yeah, no, that's there's no better teacher, I guess, than actually doing it, actually being a parent. And when I sing bedtime songs with them or read stories with them, you just hear songs like Jesus Loves Me a little bit differently. And it's those little things that you take for granted, or maybe you just didn't really fully comprehend. And then now that we've got kiddos, man, you just want them to know how much they're loved, no matter what. And it's like the other day I was thinking my middle son, was trying to do something. He was getting frustrated, and I said, "Just ask me for help. I'm right here. Just say, Dad, can you help me?" And that's in our faith. It's like, well, why don't we do that? And I don't know. It's I guess it's easier said than done, but that's trusting the Lord and asking Him to get involved in our situations, even when we don't get the answers that we were hoping for. God has a plan for each of us, and this is not our home. Like, as you said earlier, this is not it.
Yeah.
And so that just gives us a new sense of excitement. It gives me a sense of excitement and clarity and purpose that God's got this taken care of. The battle's already won.
Yeah.
We're just here to love people well, and to figure out why he placed us on this earth. And then we'll all get to be with him one day.
It changes your perspective when you start to see things you didn't realize were there before, as you literally experienced. Yeah.
Totally. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right, Mike. I want to show people your website real quick. And looks just like this. It is at MikeKinneyStory.com. So the book's prominent there. Are you accepting invitations if people don't, want to have you come speak, share your story in different settings?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. That's why I wrote the book, of course.
Okay. So they can reach you there at the website?
Yes.
Okay, cool. Anything I missed? Anything you want to add before I let you go? It's been fascinating. I love just the rawness and the just basically saying, look, this is what happened. This is what God's done, and he can do it for you, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I think one thing I do want to say is that we found out yesterday there was a little bit of a mix up at the distribution center for one of the distributors. And so the books right now, like if you were to go on the website to order it, it's saying, like Amazon, for example, is saying it could be into November. I found out yesterday that's not true. It would come within about a week or so. Okay. But I am asking people as they get the books, if you do order a copy of the book, if you could just take a picture of yourself with the book and hashtag Out of the Fire, post it to your social media pages so we can, know that you got the book and the problem was resolved. I know they're doing everything they can to make that right, but we're just super, super excited. This has been a long time coming, 20 years, but about 3 or 4 years ago that I felt like God gave me the nudge to share the story, and now here it is. So we're couldn't be more excited.
Well, we appreciate you taking the time to share the story with our audience today.
Yeah.
And
thank you for having me.
You keep sharing and keep singing.
Thanks. That's what I'll do.
All right, man. Appreciate you guys hanging out, watching, hitting share, hitting like, follow, subscribe, and pick up Out of the Fire for you, for someone else. Encourage somebody. I mean, one of the, these are the stories that you kind of, you can't put down because you're like, man, but when God gets the glory through the whole thing, then it makes it all worth it. So I love it. Check it out, MikeKinneyStory.com. And come back. We've got more for you right here next time on Life Today Live.
Presents a man that God has raised up with a message for your deliverance.
There is no distance in prayer. You don't have to go anywhere or be in any specific place. It is the believing of the heart. It is faith in God. You believe it, say amen.